And we'll turn that on and make everything come alive. Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jeff, you're in JR's Woodshop, and I am going to set up my window screens now because I'm running a little late this morning. Let me just make sure that the audio is working. It is. Okay, yeah, I was just scrambling around trying to get a couple things done this morning and got a little behind where I wanted to be. So let me get all of this stuff set up here. I'm setting up the chat window, so if you want to chat, if you want to, you know, send me some, oh, what the hell, I didn't want to add it to my queue. If you want to pop in, be part of the conversation, and you need to hush. You know, that's the thing when I've got YouTube up here, it has ads because, well, it's monetized. I figure, you know, if 5 people click on it, maybe I'll get like, you know, a millionth of a penny back. So there's that. But I do have chat windows in every one of my platforms that I stream to. I stream to 3 different platforms, if you didn't know that. They are listed down at the bottom down here. But Twitch, Facebook, to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/JR's webshop. JR's Webshop? That's stupid. No, JR's Woodshop. All one word. And to my Facebook page, which is Facebook. I just said that. Wow, my head is just not on straight this morning. Okay, Twitch. I stream to Twitch at JR's Woodshop. I stream to Facebook at facebook.com/JR's Woodshop. And I stream to YouTube at youtube.com/Jeff Revell. There we go. I think I got all those out. They're listed down below, and they're listed in the descriptions. So if you'd rather watch on a different platform, I mean, you're thinking, well, I'm already watching you. Why do you need to tell me about the other platforms? Well, because some people prefer different platforms, and maybe they've discovered me on this one, but they want to move to a different platform. So I'm just going to try to accommodate everybody. I think I got all those out. And the way I do that is, you know, I stream to different platforms. It makes it easier because not everybody goes to Twitch, although I do get a lot of viewership on Twitch. I love Twitch. And, but some people just are more comfortable in Facebook and some are more comfortable in YouTube. So I try to accommodate everybody's, you know, preferences and stream to all 3. And it's a little bit more of a challenge to do those things, but I think at the end of the day, it's worth it. So, but it does take me a little bit of time to set up because I don't have what's called a unified chat window. I don't have one that pulls in all of the chats into one window for me to see. So I have 3 different windows open here on my little laptop here, which is one for Twitch, one for YouTube, and one for Facebook. And they have the chat windows open so that if you do jump into the chat and want to say hi or ask a question or make a comment, I can see those. The thing that you need to remember is that if you don't see a comment and I'm replying to some comment, I'll try to repeat what the comment is or the question because you may not see it because it may be on a different platform than what you're on. So I try to repeat those. If somebody makes a comment or makes a question on my chat, I will try to repeat those as I can to accommodate everybody because that's what I'm all about. Just make everybody happy. That's my life. Make them happy. So what's going on in the shop today? It's just a mishmash of little things. We on the show last Wednesday, we took a bunch of scrap wood that I had cut down, and we made a cutting board, an end grain cutting board. At least I think it's a cutting board. We're not there yet, but we glued a whole bunch of these strips together. They were kind of like this. We made the first glue pass and we glued all of them together. Then we cut them into strips and then we turned them on edge and we glued these together so that when you look at the bulk of it, I don't think I turned this camera on. When you look at the bulk of it, what you're going to see is end grain. From the top down, it'll be all end grain. And let's see here. Oh, God, that's a big piece of glue on the side of this one. And it's sitting in the clamps right now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to, after I get this big knob of glue off of this thing, we're going to take them out of the clamps because it's clamped up as good as it's going to get. I mean, there is no way it needs to be clamped any longer. Usually, 24 hours is more than enough. This has gone closer to 48. So it is more than amply glued up and ready for the next step. And that next step is to get it flattened. Previously, what we had done was taken the slabs when they were laying down like, let me see if this camera's on here. So when they were laying down like this, when it was long boards like this, we could run it through the planer because this surface right here is all all long grain, and that's no problem to run through a planer. But now the slabs all look like, where's my other piece here? So the slabs got glued together, so they're like this, right? So this is now the surface. Well, we cannot feed this surface through a planer. At least not my planer. I do not have, perhaps if I had a spiral cutting head, like a helical head, it might, because it slices, it might handle this better. But because this is end grain, there's no way I'm going to feed this through my planer, because as the planer blade comes across here, it's going to catch every single one of these end fibers here, and it's going to kick it and throw it out the back of the planer. That's bad. So we've got this lovely surface that'll look like this, and we need to get it flat. So there's a couple ways we can do that. Old school, we can get a belt sander and a really heavy grit, like a 60 grit paper, and we can belt sand that thing for hours and get it flattened down. That's one way to do it. And then we could, after we get that down, then we could take my orbital sander and kind of clean that up and go through some finer grits and such to make it look prettier. But that takes a long time. I mean, that is a lot. Sanding end grain is just, it's cruel. It's horrible. It takes a long time. And if I can avoid it at all costs, I will. So that being said, we're going to try to do this a little bit differently. I've done it once before. I've only done this once, but it worked. And so we're going to do it again on my CNC machine, which is which easier for you to, right back here. That's my CNC machine. There you go. There's my CNC machine. So we're going to set this up to basically flatten this thing out. So we have to do a couple of things before it's ready for that. But I have a bit that I want to use for that. It looks like this. This is a flattening bit, mainly used for flattening a wasteboard. Wasteboard is that big board on the bottom. If you look here on the CNC machine, see the board that everything's sitting on? That is the wasteboard. That flat board on the bottom that you mount everything to is called the wasteboard. And it's called a wasteboard because it's made out of MDF, and you can mount things on top of it. You can screw things down to it. You can cut all the way through your piece, and your bit will hit that MDF, and when it's all chewed up and done, you can put a new one in there, flatten it, and then you have a brand new board to use as a wasteboard. So that's why it's called a wasteboard, because you can be wasteful with it. But I've got this bit right here that is made for flattening wasteboards and such. I wouldn't want to use, I've got a really large flattening bit that I use in my router that I use for flattening slabs and such. So it has about a 2-inch radius that it cuts, and it's really beefy, and it has like a 1/2-inch thick shank and everything else. So can't use that on here. And honestly, it's too aggressive. It's great for flattening slabs and stuff. I love it for that, but it really is not necessary. The little 1-inch one is great. We will cut a path all around the top, and we're just going to take a minimal amount. We may have to do a couple of passes, but we're just going to take a minimal amount off of our piece so that we can basically get it to a flattened state. And once we have it in a flattened state, and what that means is there may be little pieces, like I'll use this as an exaggeration. It's not going to be this bad, but you can see that this is at different levels, right? So there's pieces sticking up higher, there's pieces that are lower, and then some of them are kind of even across, right? So this is kind of a good example. This is an exaggerated view of what the wood will look like. But when you flatten this, what you're trying to do is take everything down to one flat level. So you'd have to go to the lowest area that you have, and everything gets flattened down to that lowest common denominator, right? So that's kind of where we aim for, but you can't do it all at once. If I have like, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch of pieces sticking up, there's no way I'm taking 1/8 of an inch cut off of there. I'm going to take small little tiny bits off, and then we'll keep lowering that little tiny bit down, because I mean, we're removing a lot of wood, and this thing, you don't want to bind it up. You just want to let it smoothly, just ever so slightly, cut those fibers off, right? So we'll do that in a few minutes. We're going to break this out of the clamps. We're going to look at it. We may clean some of the glue stuff off. We want it to try to sit flat on the wasteboard as much as possible, because that's going to dictate how flat we can get this thing. And then the other thing, you know, we'll try that out. And then once that side is done, we can flip it over. It'll be nice and flat on that side. We'll put it right on the wasteboard. We'll clamp it in, and then we can just run that pattern again on the other side. And really what we're looking for is just, like I said, taking that minimal bit off to make it as flat as possible. Once it's flat on both sides, it'll still actually have little marks in there, because that bit, as it chews up that wood, as it kind of does its little spiral cut thing, it will leave some ever so slight track marks on there. And what we need to do then is we can take the orbital sander with a heavy grit and just start sanding that stuff down to smooth. Or what we can do once it's flat is we can decide if we want to make additional cuts to the board, maybe cut a design or a pattern into it, maybe take the edges off and make it kind of rounded, or whatever we want to do. We can do it at that point, because it'll sit nice and flat, and we can take it over to a saw like the band saw, and maybe do some shaping on it or something else if that's what we want to do. So the first step is to get it out of the clamps, get it onto the CNC machine, get that flat on both sides, and then we can progress from there. If I want to cut it out to something, I can do that then, or I can just start sanding it down to smooth. If I want to leave it as a as a square board, it's still going to have to go over to the table saw and get some edges cleaned up, and I probably will take it over to the router table and get the edges cut. So I like to do a little chamfer bit, puts a little 45 all the way around the edge, but you know, because it makes it easy to pick up without having to put handles in it. So anyway, that's kind of the plan. A little ambitious for the day. I don't know that we'll get this all done, but we're gonna give it a try here. Make sure nothing happening in the world that I need to be aware of. What else did I do? I stained this. I think we did this. We did one batch of Danish oil on here. This is the walnut base that we were making, and I put one coat on in the shop on Wednesday. Then I went back about 15 minutes later, put another coat on, waited about another 15 minutes, and then wiped it all off. So this has been done with the Danish oil, and it looks really nice. It's just sitting here. I need to move it aside because I've got all these other ones that I have not stained yet, but these all get traditional type stain, where I'll get a brush out and brush all the stain on, and then get a rag and wipe all the excess off. And then you got to let those dry so that you can put a top coat on of lacquer. So I still have 4 of those to do. I didn't get to those yesterday. One thing I did do was mess with this board right here. This is off of an old tabletop, and I've got the rest of it that I built a base for, but this thing had, oh, really? Spam call? Go away. This thing had some really crackly, crinkly, and you can see leftover remnants of it. The shellac and stuff over years and years and years had just crackled and was just horrible. It looked like alligator skin and everything else. So what I did was I took my denatured alcohol on a rag and just started rubbing this down, because denatured alcohol can break down the shellac. And I was like, well, I don't know how far I want to take this, but this is kind of like, I'll call this scrap. It's a leftover piece. The same thing is on the other piece that's going to stay with the machine, but this is like my experimental piece here. So I wanted to see what this would do. It took a lot of the dirt and other stuff off, but it also lightened it up a bit. But that's okay. I actually am not displeased with the color. It kind of looks nice. I don't know if you can see the color on here real well. It's kind of like that. You get the lights on here and it kind of shines, but you can see the color. Not too bad. It did take all that top shellac off, so I would have to recoat this with some lacquer or something. But I'm pretty happy with it. It turned out, and it just needs a little bit of sanding. And so I did that yesterday as well. I was just experimenting with that, trying to see how much, work it's going to take for me to clean up the table. I already talked to the owner and said, hey, do you mind if I, do some stuff to clean this up? And she said, nope, just go at it. And so, because it's not my normal build, I'm doing this from another piece, and I didn't want to change it without her permission, but it needs to be cleaned up, and that the way it is now is gross, and nobody would want to actually touch it or anything. But if you get it all cleaned up and smooth, this is now nice and smooth. If I sand this piece, put a little lacquer on there, that'd be really nice. So I'm going to go forward with that as I'm finishing up hers. But anyway, let's go ahead. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way for the moment, because I'm going to break out this. Actually, first thing I'm going to do, this was from the all this wood shavings down here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I need to clean these up because they're in my way and they are taking up space. Before I glued up the panel, I cleaned it off and tried to flatten it as best I could, so that it would sit flat when we did the glue up. And I used my little block plane for that, and so that was but I didn't clean up the shavings. I'm going to put this over on the CNC machine, and then we're going to go grab this big giant thing, and we will take it out of the clamps. Now I did this with pipe clamps. See if I can set this on here like this. There we go. So this is all set up with pipe clamps right here. And I'm just going to start removing these clamps. Just this. And then I also put some tape. Move that over a little bit. I put some tape on the actual pipes. So on the bottom of the pipe, what had happened here? Something, okay, I lost my picture here. Why did I lose my picture? I do not know. I just moved this and all of a sudden lost my picture. Hang on a second, folks. I have to, oh, why did I hit fade to black? Turn that off. There we go. Sorry, I accidentally hit a button, so let's see if that works. Hello? Okay, what did I do here? Auto. 1. Okay, I completely trashed my, I trashed my damn monitors. Hang on a second. Let me restart this stupid thing. I can't believe I did that. I hit a button, and now I can't see my screens. Oh man, I just bumped a button on here. I don't know what I hit. I hit fade to black, I think. And so it faded to black, but I didn't want it to fade to black. Hang on, let me reset this. Come on. Let's go with this one. Camera broadcast and video broadcast. Why is it doing that? Okay. Is that going to allow me to change them? Yeah, it is. Okay. I have no idea what I did. I hit a button on my thing when I was moving it. So anyway, sorry for the interruption. Where was I? Oh yeah, so on the pipe clamps, I have put tape on these, on the bottoms of the clamps, on the pipes, and that just basically acts as a barrier between this black pipe and the glue that was used, because if you don't do that, the pipes will leave this black residue on the clamps when it interacts with the glue, and that's not what you want. So, and especially since it's end grain, sometimes it kind of soaks in. So just a little bit of tape on these clamps does wonders for them. Keeps them clean. It does not stick, or usually doesn't stick to the clamp or to the wood. So just pop it loose like that, and just take the tape off of here and throw the tape away. But these are just, you buy the clamp heads. If you haven't used pipe clamps, they're awesome. You can, the nice thing about them is you can buy different lengths. This is just iron pipe that you can buy at your local shop. This is a 1/2 inch by 30 inch. So these are 1/2 inch. They also make a 3/4 inch clamp. So you buy the clamp heads, one end slides on one end, and then this one screws onto the other end of the pipe. And they're great because they're nice and straight. They're strong as all get out. So a lot of people use pipe clamps like this for doing either large panel glue ups, or as we're doing for oops, I just missed, for doing cutting boards. And these are what I've always used. Some people prefer the bigger ones, but I found the 1/2 inch pipes, they don't really, you don't get, some people like the larger 3/4 inch because they say that you get less flex, but honestly, I don't get that much flex in these large iron pipes here. So I'm going to set these clamps over here for the moment. I will need to put them away because they're kind of big and in the way. But anyway, here's the reveal. There we go. There is our, it's kind of cool looking, right? Not bad. We kind of mixed it up, flipped every other one. This was 2 different panels, so it's got a pattern, but it's kind of cool looking. And the glue up actually went really well. This is actually pretty flat on the bottom. I'm happy with that. That feels really nice. I did wipe down a lot of the glue as I put it in the clamps and I got squeeze out. I got a lot of that wiped off. So it was pretty clean. Give you a better view there. So that's pretty clean. I mean, there's glue film on here, but it's not big globs anywhere, which is what we wanted to kind of avoid. Now you notice that there's a stagger on this end, right? That's because this was 2 different size panels. So the longer ones were from one panel, the shorter ones from the other. So when I put them together, I kind of alternated them. But what we will do is trim this down on the table saw. We're going to trim this down, and then this edge is pretty straight right here. It's not perfect, but it's pretty straight. And we want to get all these things kind of trimmed down. Now the weird thing is, it's a little, I'll put it this way so you can see this. So it's a little bowed right here, because when I clamp these things, you know, I don't know, it just seems like it's a little bowed. So we may straighten all this stuff out here when we get over to the table saw and just kind of run these things through and get them cleaned up. But the first thing we need to do is now this side has a little bit more glue to it. I'm going to show you this. There's a little bit more glue, like you can see right here, some glue up in here and stuff. We might start on this side just because there's a little bit more stuff to clean off. I mean, I could go over here with this, and we can try to clean some of this heavier glue off of here. And that's usually what I try to do, is just remove the heavier glue and get to the part where it's going to be a lot easier to clean, and the bit is not going to be messing with glue. It's just going to be flattening. So we might just some of these high spots where I couldn't wipe off because it was next to the clamp. Just taking this, and this is running right across the surface, so it's basically going to get anything sticking up higher than the surface here, like right here. There's no way I would want to hand plane this down though, because being in grain, it would just be horrible. Now, I might just take a section out of the middle of this too. I may not use these end pieces here. So I'm probably going to cut something out of this and cut it down in size just a little bit. All right. Now, what I need to establish is how thick this is so I can see how much I need to cut off. First of all, this is, well, if I set it on the table here, it's probably the best way to do it. I'm looking for the highest spot, and I've got my thing here. So I'm trying to find boards that are set higher. Like this right here is pretty high. So that's 1.528. Let me see if I can find any of them that are higher. 1.53. So this side might be a little higher over here. It's a little lower. 1.48. 1.5315. And the reason I say that is I want to establish how thick this is, how much I want to take off. And we're going to do that over on the CNC machine, but I don't want to set this too low because I don't want to be too aggressive with that bit. And if I give it the wrong set, that's 1.5385. So it's very high right here. Let me try that again. So I don't want to be too aggressive with that bit. May have tried to get this straight up and down here. 1.5215. Try this one. But anyway, we need to establish boundaries. So 1.38, I think, or 1.538 is where we're looking at. Let's go over to the CNC machine and I'll show you what I'm doing here. The other thing is I need to measure how big this board is. So I'm going to be putting in the measurements. So I'm over here on my computer, and I apologize. This isn't an actual direct feed. This is actually me interacting with the computer here. I think, yeah, here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter in the dimensions of this board. Now, the one thing I said was the thickness is 1.538, right? 538 inches. So we got that. Now we need to figure out the width and the length. So this will be my X. And that is basically how long this thing is. So I'm going to measure that real quick. And it is 14.25. 0.25. And we need the other dimension. Let me get this set up here. This dimension is going to be, and I'm going to take the widest section here that I can find. It's about 10 3/8. All right, 10 3/8. Which I think that's 375. I never can figure out my widths here, so hang on a second. Let's do 3/8, right? So stop it. Adds. Okay, so we need 3/8 is going to be 375, yeah. So 10.375. I think I know that by now, right? And enter. So now we've got our depth and our width and length. I'm going to change the material to, like, I'll just call it red oak. it's something, it doesn't have to be, it just gives it whatever it is. There we go. So there is a representation on this side of our board. Our bit is 1 inch. Now, if I come over here, hang on a second, I'm going to zoom this to, what did we say, that was 14 inches? So I'm going to zoom this side out. And that is a representation of our board right here. So what we need to do is we need to cut, I'm going to get a shape, and we just need a rectangle. And we're going to cut this rectangle so that it is basically covering the entire board here, because we want to cut the whole thing off. So we're going to go up this way, and then I need to move this over a little bit so I can see. There we go. And we're going to drag it out to the side here, and we're going to cover this whole board. Now you can see what happens on this piece is it's like, oh, you're cutting that much off, because my depth of cut right now is like 0.6 inches. Well, that is not how much we're cutting off. We're going to cut off about like a little tiny bit. Like that's 0.01521. It's just a tiny slice, a thin sliver of cut on here. And I can zoom this in. And I don't know if you can see that. Hang on a second, I need my hands on here. Sometimes it's hard to do this. But you can see that this is cutting a very, you'll see this little bit right there. It's just cutting a little bit. So as I increase the cut depth, you can see that it's making that adjustment on there. And also, hopefully what you're seeing is I've got corners on here, and I don't want the corners to be there. So I have to increase the size of my rectangle so that it does not leave these rounded corners, because what it's saying is, well, the bit, when it comes around that corner, is not going to take that part out. So we need to increase this by just a tiny bit. No joke intended there. I can go to the shape, and I can actually expand the shape a little bit. So 14.3, so it's not even the right size yet. So let me try 14.375 and see if that's going to cut everything. And it does not still, so we're going to have to go a little bit more. So let's go 14.5. 14.5. Still got a little bit of corner that's being left on here. So we're going to go a little bit more. So 14.25 or 0.75. Yeah, 14.75. Okay, so I think we're good now, but I need to move this down. I need to move the position down. No, that's pretty much covering it. I'm still getting a little bit of corner here. So I need to move it down. I'm on the wrong screen. Just drag this out just a little bit more. And hang on a second, I'm going to put the center of this. I think we're good there. If there's a little bit left over on the end, I'm okay with that. Now I have to figure out how much I want to take off. That's the big thing. So how much are we going to remove from here? So first off, I'm going to measure my depth of cut, and I'm going to just pick a spot here, and like that is 0.225. So let's start with that and see if we can get that to be my depth of cut here. So we're going to go back to the cut screen, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to go 0.225. Enter. And that is how deep we want that cut to go. That is not very deep at all. Oh, hang on. That said 0.225. I want 0.0225. That is what we want. Before it was a little off. So what we need to do now is we need to get this set up because it's not set up. So let me get you a different camera and I'm trying to stay out of your way, but let you see what I'm doing here. Move this out of the way a little bit. And we're going to come in here, and I've got a wasteboard that I've got on here from cutting lids from another project. So that's this, and it's just garbage. But I put that down there because even though this right here is a spoil board, I don't want my spoil board to be spoiled. I like to leave it in as good a shape as I possibly can. Let me turn on my CNC machine so it wakes up, and then I can move the head around. And I'm going to take all these clamps and stuff out and get them out of the way. Because like I said, these were from a different project. Now what I might do is put some double side tape on this thing just to help hold it firm. As I do this, I'm going to use clamps, but I don't want this thing moving. And I'm going to be running right to the edge of this board. And so I can't clamp it from the top. Like normally I would put like maybe one of these little clamps right here. If this is my board, right, I might put one of these clamps on here to hold it down. But since I'm cutting the entire perimeter of the board, I can't use any clamping system on top of it. And that can create an issue for me. So let me move this, let's go this way. Just get it out of the way. And then I can remove this one. I might use this one again, I don't know, as my back. Actually, you know what, I'm going to use this one as my backstop here. It's in pretty good shape here. I'm just going to go ahead and use this as my back position. Let me get this one out. So I'm getting all of these previous clamping locations out of here and I'm going to make space for this board on here. Like I said, I might put some double-sided tape on the bottom of that board. I don't know how well it'll hold, but hopefully pretty well. All right. All this stuff here, trying to get all this stuff out of the way. Whoops. This is out of the way. All right, so we've got a back position here. Let me go ahead and move this over. And I'm going to take the clamp that's, not clamp, the bit that's in here now. I'm going to take this out because I don't need it at the moment. This was from that other project, and we are finished with that. So, I do hate removing bits from this thing, though. It is kind of a pain. You have to loosen it once, and then it gets to a point where it binds again. You have to loosen it again. And just like this. There we go. Get this bit out. So this was my 1/8 inch. Ooh, it's got some glue residue and stuff on here because well, it's not glue, but it's like glue from the tape, which climbed onto this thing. So I'll have to clean this off. A little alcohol, clean that off. But anyway, this was the 1/8 inch spiral bit that I used to cut out the lids for the sewing machines. But now what we want to do is we're going to insert this bit. This is that Wasteboard Flattening Bit. And we're going to sit this in here, and then we will tighten this up. And make sure I can still fit this here to get this tight. All right, so that's nice and tight. Let's go ahead and let me just raise this up and move it back out of the way. Now we're going to bring our board over and just look at how much real estate we have here to work with and where we want to put this thing. So we're going to set this on here. like this. And I'm going to look at locations where I can actually start setting up clamping on here to make this good. Now, there's threaded inserts all over this wasteboard. Problem is, a lot of those threaded inserts on here over time have busted out. I need new threaded inserts is what I need. But the ones that are in here kind of busted out. They need to be replaced. The threaded inserts are what you screw these clamps and stuff down to. So I don't necessarily have a bunch of them here to go with, but let's see, I've got one on this side I can use. And what I look for is areas where I can get the clamps into here. I need to move this over. I need to move this back a little bit. Ooh, that's tight. I did not need that to be that tight. Too tight. Getting them too tight is what makes these things bust over time. So let me get this back right to this line. That looks good. Now these flat ones, I made these on my CNC, so they kind of look like this. They're just hardwood. This was made out of maple or whatever. So they have a flat end here that you push against your project, and then you put the screws in here and tighten it down to the table so it doesn't move. So that's what these are. And I made those. But let me get this in here. And then I can put one of those over on this side, like this. And I just need to get that secured in. And then I need one on the other side. So let me get this just in place a little bit here. So I'm going to try to do these on 4 sides. Have one of these on each side. This one, I think I'm going to have to come up here and do it up here because I don't have, yeah. And, you know, you got to go where you've got the little screw holes. Let me get this out of the way. So I have threads up here, so there'll be one up on this end. Like I said, I think I'm going to put some double-side tape on here just to kind of get it secure on the underside. And then I need to put one in on this side. I could put 2 in down here actually, but to put one right about here. And I'm not locking these down right now. I'm just kind of getting them in place. So this is all part of the setup, is getting your clamping figured out, because you want, like I said, you want to have a good clamp on your project, because if it moves or shifts during the cutting, you're kind of hosed. It's not a good thing. I have one more of these, and I think I can put this in here, and I think this will work. So we could do a couple of these. There we go. Yeah, let's go like this. All right, this will be good. We'll have 5 of these on here to kind of hold this in place. Like I said, this is not clamped down yet. It will be, but right now I'm just getting these in position. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to put some double-side tape on here. Get this pulled out. There we go. So we're going to put double-side tape on the back of this. And we'll put a few strips on here, and hopefully some of that double-side tape, come back over here. Hopefully some of that double-sided tape will adhere to this and work well in holding this down to the table. Now, one of the key things to doing this is finding your double-sided tape. So here it is. I also have some thicker stuff. Actually, you know what? I might use the thicker stuff since this actually is pretty rough. I've got this stuff right here, which is more like carpet tape. So it's thicker, but I don't mind that on here because it has more cush to it, right? So that it hopefully will fit on here a little bit better. I do need my scissors. It's easier to cut with the scissors, so hang on just one second. Let me grab those. And then I'm going to turn this, I'm going to turn my dust collector around here a little bit, get the bulky section kind of out of the way. It makes it easier for me to get through the little opening here. So I'm just going to pull out about that much is good. Ugh, this stuff does not like to cut though. It would be better as if I had a knife here, which I do not have a knife on here. Okay, so there's one strip. And like I said, I'm just going to lay this down on here. And hopefully on the high parts of this board, it will sit and make contact with my wasteboard. I'll probably do 3 of these going across here. But yeah, hopefully it will make contact with my wasteboard and just give another added level of holding to it. Okay, there's another one. Just going to set this down. And then I have to peel. This is all just the backing on here. So when I peel that backing off, there will be another adhesive side to this tape. It's just basically double-sided tape. Like I said, I think this is carpet tape is what this originally was meant for. But I have, and a lot of people do this, is use carpet tape as their double-sided tape. But this is, like I said, slightly thicker than the stuff I normally use. The stuff I normally use is a much thinner paper-based type tape, much more like a masking tape. Golly, stop it. Oh, but this is thick. This is quite sticky. Yeah, the other tape I use, which is this tape right here, is more of a masking tape thickness. And I want this tape, this particular carpety tape, because I think it will work better with the uneven surface. Usually that paper tape I use when the surface is flat. All right, let me find this. Right here is just my little edge marking knife, and I'm going to try to peel up one of the edges on here. So I'm going to make sure this is really stuck down as best I can, and then we will try to peel up just the corner of this there we go, to show off the adhesive side. So I just use the very tip of this knife, this marking knife, to get underneath the backing material and lift it up. And if you've done a really good job of sticking this down, it separates really easily like that. Okay, so we've got, here we go. So we've got our tape on here, these 3 strips. I'm going to now take this back over to the CNC machine, and we are going to, I'm just making sure that all the dust and debris is off of here so that this has a good surface to stick to. And we are going to set this in place on here, just like this. And I'm just going to push it against that back, try to keep it as even as I can here. That. All right, and I'm going to push this down, put a lot of pressure on here. Now that is already holding really well. So all of this other stuff is just gravy on top. And this is going to make sure that it doesn't catch and slide and move. So I will loosen these and push them. All these other pieces, I'm pushing these into the sides. I'm going to hold them really tight against the side as I tighten these down. And then I can go from the other side and put pressure this way. So I'm pushing really hard into it, and then I'll tighten the screws as I do that. And like I said, when I'm done, hopefully, this thing will be locked in place. Now I can push on here. And I'm just tightening these screws. You don't have to crank them down. Just enough force to get them to hold in place. All right, and this last one right here. And then we have this really well secured. Except for this one, there it goes. That was really a long screw. There we go. So now this thing, I'm pushing and shoving on every corner. It's not moving. So that is exactly what we want. We want this to be locked down and not movable. Because the last thing in the world you want when you're doing a carve is for your piece to move. It just does bad things. Bad things. Okay, I need to raise these little legs. These are for the dust collector. I need to raise them up out of the way because if I push this forward, they might catch the edge. They're set pretty low because the other boards I were doing were really thin. So I'm going to raise these up for the moment, and then we will reset the height of them in a minute. I also need to raise my bit up because it's set too low. It might not be too bad, but I think it was a little low. All right, now let's bring this forward here. There we go. Now what I need to do is set this up so that I can do two things. One, I need to figure out where I want to set the 0 point of this thing. Because I'm missing a piece of this, not missing, but this is shorter right here. So my 0 would typically be right suspended in air right here. Would be my XY 0 point. The other thing I need to figure out is where is the highest point on here where I can level this out. And I think it's going to be right around here, right here. I think this is where I'm going to do my my height determination. I think everything else here is kind of, well, maybe this one's a little high. This one seems a little higher right here. Let me check the height here. Because like I said, you want to establish what your highest part is, and you want to use that as your, when you set the depth of the machine up, like saying this is the highest point so that it knows how deep to cut. Well, you don't want to pick a point that's too low because then it could, ooh, that's high. Let's try that one again. There we go, 1.535. So I think they're a little off from side to side, but this is pretty high right here. Yeah, that's pretty high up. I don't think there's any others that are that high up. 515, 245, 50. So like I said, I'm just looking for those boards that are set higher than the ones around them, because that will be the point at which I say this is the high spot. 5285, 285, 5, really? 532. So I think right around here, this is my high spot. I'm going to use that as my point where I set the high spot, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Yeah, so this is pretty high right here. Okay. All right. So what we need to do now is we need to establish a couple things. We need to tell the machine where the high spot is on this board. It's going to use that as the basis for determining the very top point, and then it knows how deep to cut. Now it may not impact part of this board here. We don't know. It may only get part of the pieces here, depending on how deep the cut is, but it's a starting point for us. So I'm going to take this. This is my little Z puck right here, and this will set on that high point. So I'm going to set this on my high point. I'm going to move this over to that spot. Raise this up a little bit more. There we go. And then I have to change this so it moves in smaller increments now, so I can get it set up over top of this. There we go. Because what's going to happen is this is going to make contact. It's going to lower down, make contact, and then it's going to say, oh, that's my point right there. And it does that through an electrical connection. We're basically going to create a circuit So this is going to lower down. This bit will lower down and touch this puck. As soon as it touches that puck, because this clip right here is attached to the chuck right here, because it's attached, it basically completes the circuit. When this touches this, it completes or closes that circuit, and it says, oh, that's my spot, and then it'll raise back up. But it uses that as the calculation point. I find this to be so much easier than using a piece of paper and trying to slide it under. You take a piece of paper, put it under the bit, and lower it down until you can barely just slide that paper. I hate that method. Not reliable at all. By the way, I've only done this once before, so we're kind of playing it by ear here. All right, this looks good for this part. So I'm going to go through and, should I change screens for this? Maybe. Let you see what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up for a cut here, for a carve. I think we're in good shape. I think. So we're going to hit carve up here in the top right corner. And then I have to verify a bunch of things. So it's like, oh, well, your board is this thick and it's this type of wood. And I'm going to confirm the material thickness. And then it says, hey, is your stuff secure? And I'm going to say yes. Confirm your bit. My bit, I've got it measured out to be a 1-inch bit. So that's my bit size. I'm going to confirm that. And now I'm going to use the probe. So by probe, what I do is I confirm the location because we want it on that part. That's the highest part. We figured that out. The clip is attached. Now I have to go make contact with it. So I'm going to get in front of you for a second. I have to raise the probe up and touch that bit with the probe so that it knows that yes, there is, when it touches it, it will make a good connection. And so you're just giving it that confirmation that it will make a contact point when you touch it. If for some reason that clip is not on there good or some other thing, if you touch that and you're not getting a confirmation, what happens is when you get ready to lower that down, it's never going to sense that puck, and it's just going to keep trying to cram it down until it does, and you can break things. That's not good. All right, the touch plate is in place, and we can start probing. And I'm going to go back to the other camera so you can see the probe now. So we're going to probe this down. And there you can see it moving. It made contact, and it's like, whoop, okay, that's our 0 point right there, and it raised back up. So we're going to go back to this screen. Well, actually, let me stay on here for a minute because I have to move a couple things around. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this to what I believe is the 0 point. The 0 point is the XY 0, which should be down in this corner down here. So I'm going to set my, well, actually, I'm going to do one thing first. I'm going to move this over to the middle here. And I'm going to set up my, just real quickly, I'm going to set up the depth of this, of these two little arms right here so that it will hold my dust collector in place. And so I need to do what? I need to raise this up. There we go. Put this in place, and I'm going to lower this down until this just barely contacts the surface with these brushes that are around the side of this thing. I don't want it dragging necessarily, just hovering above the surface. And now we'll lock these back in. But that will keep the dust at a minimum, because this is going to create a lot of dirt and dust. So we don't want that. Okay, now I've got that set. I'm going to pull this back out. Now all this time, the machine is remembering where that 0 point is because we've already done that measurement. So now what I can do, I'm going to lower this back down and get it close to the surface. And then we're going to move this over to the corner down here. And I'm going to try to establish that point. So what I'm looking for is the very middle of this to be directly over top. Well, not bad, actually. So now I'm going to set this to a finer movement and get it lined up like that. And then I'm going to try to get it lined up this way. Hang on a second. Let me look down the barrel here. I'm going to lower this one more time here. There we go. And try to get this lined up with this line. It's actually not bad. Maybe back just a little bit. Now you do some baby measurements here. So I'm getting this lined up. Trying to look down the barrel here. Right there. And maybe over just a hair. So right there looks like my good XY 0 point. So I'm going to raise this back up so that I can get my dust collection on there. As long as I don't move it in the XY position right now, when it asks me to set my 0 point, I'll be in good shape. See, this is why. There we go. That's what I want. And then this should, yeah, that passes through. All right. I need to set up the dust collection because that's something we need to do. We need to have this pulling all that dust out, which means I need to hook up the hose. So I've got a special way of doing that. This dust boot was a third party. They actually make these on 3D printers. So I bought this because at the time, Inventables had none of these for sale. And it was kind of very annoying. And I have a block right here. This block that I have, I attached this to the front of the table like this, and it just holds, because it has that U shape, it holds the hose in place and just keeps it from slipping around while the machine is running. And it holds it up and out of the way and gives access to the dust collector right here. Okay, we're at a point where this is pretty close. Where's my keyboard? Right here. I'm going to tell it to put the Z probe is away, and I'm going to set my XY axis right now. Okay, now I just basically the last steps of this. Now I have no idea how long this is going to be, so bear with me as we figure this out. I might have to shut it down too. But what I need to do is get a power hooked up to the router itself. So I've got a power cord here. I'm just going to plug in the router because it has its own cord over here. And we will plug that in. And then I'm going to get some ears on. We're going to turn on the vacuum. We're going to start the router bit. And then we are going to let this thing start a cut. Now, I can't find my dust collector remote. There it is. Okay, I found it. Found it. All right. I'm going to get my ears. And then I'm going to start the dust collector. I'm going to start the router, and then we will enact or engage the router. Okay, that was just about bang on perfect there. I've got a couple little tiny spots where it was just a little off on the edge, but dang, that looks great. And now what I need to do is I need to move this stuff out of the way and just check to see if it's needing another flatness, right? If I need to flatten it again to get that down. So let me raise this up out of the way here. And then I'm going to move this to a 1 inch, and I'm going to move it back this way. And then I'm going to move this all the way out of the way. And I want to check the entire surface here. So I'm going to take this off, I think. Hang on, I need to move that up a little bit. Move this out of the way. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to check this and see if it got what we wanted here, right? So if I have any areas now, this should feel extremely flat all the way around. If I have any areas where, okay, so right here is a low spot. It needs to make one more pass. There's one low spot right here. Everything else feels really good. Maybe one tiny low spot right here. That's pretty much it. Just two tiny little low spots. Maybe right here. Two tiny little low spots. I'm going to run my planer over this edge where it just didn't. I could actually probably use a piece of sandpaper. Just clean that up right there. Let me try this. Where are you? There it is. So let me there's one little edge here where it was like, just didn't quite nick this edge right here. I just want to make sure that we have all that. I mean, there's some burrs and stuff on the edge, but like I said, we're going to cut this thing down, so I'm not really caring about those. But overall, man, that was good and very satisfying. So what I'm looking at is there's a little bit, I can see glue in the corners of this edge right here, which means it didn't cut down to that surface. But I could also, and then right back here in the back, just a tiny bit. But I can take this bit and do the exact same thing and make the same cut. That was a very light cut. I can make the exact same cut on here, or I could go down even less than that. I could change the cut depth on here to something even less. Got a lot of dust on there. Hang on, I'm gonna clean this dust up. Even though I had a dust boot on there, a lot of dust came out of this thing. All right. But I mean, it's kind of cool. You saw the little spirally type thing. Now what I can do is I can change the depth of our cut for this next one. That actually just made one pass though. It was one single pass. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna set it up and have one more pass at that depth. When that's done, we will pull this out of the clamps. We will flip it over, put some more tape on the other side, and then do this exact same thing on the other side. But that, I'm very excited that this turned out as nicely as it did. That was awesome. All right, let's go ahead and set this up again. And it really didn't take that long. You notice that was like a pretty quick cut. I mean, as CNC cuts go. So I'm gonna just put this in the middle now because that's pretty much my high point. Now it's all even on as far as high points go, so I don't have to find the highest edge to know where that is to make the cuts. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up my puck here, my 0 puck for my Z axis. This is the Z, that's like X and Y. I think that's right. Yeah, X, Y, and then up and down is Z. So I'm setting up the puck here to be in shape. I'm going to go ahead and go through this whole motion again of the setting it up for a cut. So I'm going to say carve, and we're going to go confirm the thickness, confirm the material, confirm the bit depth. We're going to go to the probe. I'm going to confirm the position. The clip is attached. I'm going to make sure that there is a connection and there is contact there. Contact was confirmed. So now the touch plate is in place and we can start probing. And it was up kind of a bit, so it's going to have to come all the way down, make contact, and then come back up again. I'm not sure why you did that. What is the deal with that? Okay, so that is done. I'm going to raise this up again. I can move this out. And then I have to go and find that location again for my I have to go find that XY location again. And it should be pretty close here because I didn't move. I just did single steps here. So let me get this. Oh, that's too much. Excuse me, come back up just a hair. All right, let me assure that this is in the correct location. This way it looks good. And we're gonna look at this way, down the pipe here. Looks good. All right, we look good. All right, I'm gonna raise the bit up so I can get my dust collection back in there. We don't want it hitting that. I can put it back down now. All right, and Z probe is now put away. I'm going to set my XY axis because that's why we moved it to that corner. And now it's just a matter of running that whole process again. I'm going to put my ears back on. We're going to do dust collection, turn the router on, and let it rip. All right. As you saw, I readjusted my dust collector kind of midway through there because it was just a little too high and it was not doing a great job because this stuff kicks out a lot of chips. So I'm going to take this off and then I'm going to move this out of the way here. That looks great. But that was just enough cutting to get this thing down to where it needs to be. Now, kind of weird, I do notice, and I'll have to address this here. I think I've got a little bit of flex in my CNC machine in one direction, which something probably needs to be tightened up, and I need to fix that. But it left a raised section, which I can flatten with a planer. Okay, I just wanted to get some of that dust cleaned up. Yeah, right here, just a little high section, kind of weird. Let me grab my plane here really quickly and just see if just a little bit of a high section right here, not much, just a tiny bit. And I think it's where my plane or the CNC was coming across and just flexed just a tiny bit. But like I said, you're going to get little lines across this stuff anyway. That's actually not bad. Don't want to do too much here. This plane is really sharp, so it is doing a job on this end grain pretty well. Where it's been like, if I could just take this across all of this and get any high spots off of here. But we can actually take this out of the clamps now. Let me put this over here. We can take this out of the clamps and we can bring it over to the table here and get it prepped for the other side. So let's see, I don't want to move all of it. I'm going to release a couple of these clamps. You just get them kind of moved back, and then I'll have to put like a chisel or something under here to get the tape to release. So move these out of the way. I left two of them in place so I can kind of slide it back in the corner and get ready to go. But yeah, let me get my chisel here and get underneath this. and just kind of start wedging this thing. There we go. Just like that. All right. So let's come back over to our main screen here. Let me just get some stuff out of the way so I can set this down. All right. First thing I want to do is get this tape off of here. Oh, no, actually, the first thing I'm going to do is take these ears off my head because don't need them. Yeah, that tape worked out really well. I'm very happy with the tape. Did a great job. I mean, that's the problem with this tape, though, is it's like one and done, right? You can't use it again. I mean, I could probably, if I had to do that other side again, I could stick this down. It would probably stay without any problem because it is still pretty tacky. But we don't want to do that. All right, just checking the message board. Nobody's in the message board right now, so all quiet. And then what we'll do is we'll do that exact same process on this side. But looking over to here, we can see that that is really super clean. You may not see it on this camera. We'll put number 4 up here, and you can see that now that is a very flat. Let's look down the length of it here. Look how flat that is all the way across. There's some marks here from where the router went across, but honestly, I mean, this looks great. This is super nice and will serve us well. I need to clean up the edges because there's, I call it mushrooming. Basically, as that bit hits the edge of the wood, you get a lot of little chipping on the edges and stuff. You can see it there. There's like little pieces that just kind of flip out of there, but that's okay. I'm just cleaning those off with some sandpaper. It doesn't need to be a crazy process here. We're just making it so that that doesn't interfere as we clamp this up. So same thing on this side. Just cleaning those little pieces that are sticking out. And cleaning these little edges off here. But yeah, overall, really, really pleased with how this looks. Super nice. Super nice. We will still need to sand the bejesus out of this because end grain, right? End grain getting cut, not the same as end grain getting sanded down flat. So we're going to have to make some cuts on here. We're going to have to trim this down and cut off the tooth side over here that's sticking up. Actually, let me clean off these wild bits right here. I can't get the ones down inside, but that's okay. I don't care about those. I care about the ones up here that are going to impact the clamping. So that's all we need for those. And I was thinking I would need to run my plane over this now, but I don't feel any uneven surface on here. So very flat and very even. And we can go ahead and stick the tape on here and get this ready for the next one. Wonder if, hang on, I want to look at something here. Oh, what the heck did I just do? Oh, I tripped over a plug. Oh, see, that's why when you got so much stuff going on. Small shops. Small shops are wonderful. Hopefully you just saw me just trip and break my neck there, right? Just looking for I thought I had like a box knife in here or something to cut this tape with besides these scissors, which are not very sharp, but we'll just suffer with the scissors. Is what it is. 'Tis what it is. But let's go ahead and get this taped up, and then that process does not take very long. This other side here, let me look at the wood variation. This is actually flatter than that other one was. I chose that other side first because this was the flatter of the two sides. So because this is flatter, we may only have to make one pass on this, which would be super. I would love that, to only have to make one pass. Would be great. And get some tape on here. And cut this off. Okay, come on, scissors. Come on, you got this. Come on, scissors. There we go. Sometimes you just got to give them a little encouragement, you know? Sometimes they just need a little encouragement. It's like, give the scissors a little pep talk. Because, you know, everybody needs a little pep talk every now and then, even scissors. Truth be told, though, I think these scissors were purchased at Harbor Freight, so, you know, I should not be expecting too much from them. But yeah, a little pep talk and they just perform like crazy. So nice. All right, last one right here. Let's get this last piece of tape on here. I'm trying to keep it kind of straight, in a straight line. Just makes it a little easier laying it down. And then we will make one last cut here. Come on, I just said nice things about you, scissors. There we go. Okay, like I said, there's certain times where I will use this tape and sometimes where I won't. And this is one of those times where this tape is awesome. Has great holding power. Pretty easy to take the backing off. That's the other thing. Some people have a lot of problems with some of the tape. Even the white stuff that I use, sometimes getting the backing stuff off of there is pretty difficult. So, all right. But this stuff is actually pretty simple. If you press it down and make sure that one adhesive side is pressed into your project, the backing is pretty easy. Like I said, I use the edge of a knife blade or something like that. Just kind of makes it a lot easier to get underneath there and just peel up just that top part right there. So there we go. Done and done. We have tape on here, ready to go. Let's see the tape. We can take this back over and stick it in. It'll be this way. So let's go back over to our project over here. And like I said, I left two corners in place. Actually, I'm gonna clean these up. I'm gonna get the dust. Just wanted to make sure we had a nice clean surface here to put this tape down, which we do now. I left these two corners in place to allow for an easier mounting in of this. We're just gonna press this down, and then I will tighten up all of my stuff. I'm just gonna loosen this and retighten it just to make sure it's pressed against here really well. Like I said, you know, once you have these things locked in, and that's why if you're doing multiples of stuff or opposite sides, it's nice to have some anchoring points. That's why I left these two tight where they were. So it kind of formed a corner for me to just slip the project into, and then I can push everything else in and force the rest of the corner tight. There we go. And this one right here. All right. And this one actually has a full corner now because we flipped it. So I have a full corner that I can XY axis over here a little bit easier. The other thing is I'm going to try to find my highest spot here. I think right here is going to be my highest spot. So I'm going to use that to where I put my puck. So we're going to just set this up here so I can find that location. And we're going to move this into place. Oops. Okay. And we're gonna just do like that. I think that might be my highest spot. Maybe towards the back here, actually. Let me move it back. Right there. Okay, that is my highest spot. I'm gonna go ahead and plug this probe in and put the clip on here so we can get a good, nice, good connection. And then I'm going to set this up to go ahead and make a cut, right? So let's go ahead and I'll show you this again on the software here. So on the software, I go up here to where it says carve and I press that. I'm going to confirm my material, the thickness and the material that it actually is, like it's identified as red oak. I chose red oak because it uses the material properties to help determine the cut speeds and the depth of cut and such. Oak is a really hard wood, and so it takes that into account when it's doing these calculations for cut speed. So if it's, if it's something soft like cherry, you can go faster and deeper and without risk of damaging your bits. If it's a hard material like walnut or oak, you need to slow down your feed and your depth. And that's why I chose this one. So material is secure. We are using the 1-inch bit. We are going to probe. I'm going to confirm the position, and I'm going to tell it that the clip is attached. I have to make contact here, so let me make contact so that it knows where it is. Boop, there it goes. It sees that. And now what I'm going to do is tell it to go ahead and start probing. Let's go back to this one right here. So now we're probing. I had it set up really high. I should have lowered it a little bit first, but that's okay. There we go. It made contact. That established the top point of the wood because it knows exactly how thick that puck is, and it subtracts that from the distance it needs to travel when it starts cutting. That's why I love this probe. It is so nice. Now I'm going to bring this over and set up the XYZ axis, or the XY axis. So let me put this back to 1 inch here. It makes it easier to move it faster. And we're going to go forward. And like I said, I'm just going to find that. I'm going to move this down to 1/10 of an inch. I'm going to lower this bit down until it's closer to the surface. It makes it easier to find that XY kind of location when you have it. Uh-oh, that's a little, need to raise that just a little bit. There we go. Okay, now we can move this over. Like I said, I'm just going to try to find that where my XY is. Nudge it just a little bit. Okay, and then I need to find it from this edge. I'm going to look from this side. Maybe it's a little easier to see from over here. See the little feet from the thing are in the way, so I'm just trying to see. Get down here. I think it needs to come forward just a. I think that's it. I think that looks good enough. So I'm going to raise that back up now to the point where I can actually put the dust boot back on without hitting it. Oops. See, it needs to go up higher. There we go. Now I can lower it down. And that dust boot needs to come down just a little bit because we shaved a little off of this. So it doesn't need to be all the way there, but that's pretty good. You don't want it to be dragging so much as just touching. And then we'll put the dust collector back on, the hose, and we can go ahead, and I'm going to tell it the Z probe is away. We're going to set the XY. And all I have to do now is turn everything on and let it do its thing. So I'm going to go ahead and put my ears back on here because this is loud. I've got the dust collector and a router going. So it's a very loud process. So I definitely need my ear protection. And let's give this a run. Okay, that turned out great, except for one problem. Not a problem, it's just I was hoping I would get it all in one pass. I did not. There is one tiny section. Hang on, let me raise this up. There's one tiny section where I was hoping that I could get this all in one pass. It did for about 95% of it. But one little section, I'm going to just go straight backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. One little section here in the back is just, apparently this area was just a hair lower. So I still have a little bit of glue up on top here, which means it is not flush with the rest of this, which means I need to do one more pass just to get everything done. I'm not going to move anything. I'm going to set it up right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to move it over here. I'm just going to set my XY axis right now, and we're just going to do this really quickly. It doesn't take that long. As you can see, we've kind of got this dialed in. Everything's set, so let me get this all done here. I should get my XY set up really quickly too. So, but one more pass should do it. Just disappointing it didn't get it all. I was like, oh, it's so close, but I do see glue at the top there, which means that it did not quite get that depth that I needed for this to be complete. Contact. Oh, see, no contact. So it saw no contact there, which means that I need to make sure. There it goes. Now it had contact. All right, let's do some probing here. But anyway, it should be easy to relocate my XY axis and make one more pass here. So the other thing going on with this, I didn't really mention it, but in my cut settings, I have this set to ease into the cut. So instead of just pushing right down in and starting, what it does is it ramps in at about a 5 degree and then starts the cut. And that gives you a smoother, better transition in your cut. It's not as hard on the bits, which is really nice. Go back to 1 inch here. And then there we go. And we are all set up. That is my exact XY axis because we didn't change anything. So I'm going to set this up for the dust collector. And we're just going to let this cut one more time. And then hopefully that should be nice and smooth. And we can move on with our lives, right? Let me lower this a little bit here. Okay, so Z probe is away. Set my XY because it's in the exact same location it was before. My dust shoe is attached. The spindle is on. Well, it's not, but it's going to be. And let's go. Okay, we are good now. Let me just pop this bit up and move it out of the way. Get this off of here. And move this back out of the way. Oh, too far. Gotta be careful when I do that. All right. I can start taking these clamps off of here. And then we can get the chisel and we'll just kind of pry this edge up here. A lot of dust chips on that one too. Okay, here. Let me get my chisel. And just to get underneath this corner here, I'm just going to pop this thing up. Maybe. 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 Wow, that tape worked really well because it was really flat, right? So yeah, it was working really well here. Okay, hang on. We will try, I need maybe another chisel, just 2 chisels, because I can get the corner up and then slide one in a little bit further and then give me a little bit more leverage here. So I'll grab another chisel here. And then we'll get this thing pried off. Thing is, now I don't want to ruin it, right? So now I can get under here, pry it up, just like that, and then we're good. Okay. And then we can dust off and get this tape off of here. And I can take these ears off for a couple of minutes. There we go. Tape residue off of there. Don't need any tape residue left behind. Okay, last one. Now I did notice one area I'm gonna try to clean up a little bit with a chisel. Dang it, I didn't get it all right here. On the other side where I gotta check my CNC machine and check all the bolts. I've got a little bit of flex when it hits a little bit more resistance as it's carving. It tends to get off of there. Just be a little bit of flex in one spot, which creates a high spot, if you will. Because it's not, as the thing's moving forward, it kind of kicks it a little bit, and that little slight kick means it's not getting the full bite out of the bit. Get off of here. All this gooey tape in the corner here. Okay, well, that'll have to do for the moment. I'm going to sand it anyway, so it's close enough. But right, and you can see it right here where it was stepping in. There's a little diagonal line. Let me try this one. A little easier to see. So see right here where you can see a diagonal line kind of going in. That's when it would come back up, it would kick back in here, and then it would go, oh, and then it would smooth out. So it's just a tiny little high spot there that I need to clean off. And I've got all these little burr things on here that I want to clean those off because they're annoying and they're going to catch my fingers here. So I don't need that. And like I said, all this is going to get trimmed off anyway on the saw. But no sense in getting splinters at this point from this thing. So we're just going to clean all these off. There we go. And give this a little rub down here. But overall, this feels really smooth, and I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Get rid of all this stuff. So, not disappointed at all. Like I said, I think this is only the second time I've actually used the CNC to flatten something. So I'm going to raise up my middle section here real quick. And then just slide it over, and that gives me a stopping block here. And I'm going to use that to just push the board against. That's why I made my table that way. So you can see this middle section right here actually lifts and slides, and then it stays up. So I've got about 3/8 of an inch sticking above the table surface now, so you can see it bumps into that. Because all I want to do is kind of hit these areas right here where they're just a hair high, and get it evened out with the rest of it. See right here, I'm not picking up anything. Right over here, starts to hit just a little bit. So I'm doing pretty well right there. Everything else seems pretty clean here. Maybe just a little bit on the edges or something. And this being a very long sole on this means that it's kind of flattening. It's not smoothing as much as it's flattening. So it's using the rest of the board as a reference. So anything that's sticking up above that is going to get flattened down. And I'm not taking a bunch of stuff. You can see it's just minimal shavings off of there. Dump those out. It feels amazingly nice. But just making sure that got a nice good reference surface here. And this just means that it's less sanding I have to do. If I get this cleaned up like this, the more I clean it up, like this, the less sanding I'm going to have to do. And that's a good thing. So that's pretty clean right now. I don't feel any variation in the surface. It all feels very flat and flush. I'm going to flip it around really quick. Just run it from the other side here. Just kind of. There we go. I think that about does it. There we go. So very little amount of time for us to do that, but a really cool surface now for this thing. I wish I had a dark strip up in the middle. It just didn't work out that way. I didn't have enough walnut strips. I wish I had one more that would have kind of gone right through the middle there. That would have looked kind of cool. But you know, it is what it is. Tis what it is. Let me just run this again like this, just to make sure this side. I think I did this already, so it feels pretty good. Yeah. So I mean, just minimal shavings off of there. Okay. So what are we gonna do now? Well, I think now we're in a good spot where we can clean up these edges and just make this into a rectangle, if nothing else for the moment. So I think I want to try that. Now the problem I have here is that these edges are not, I'm going to check these out. So they're not exactly square. It's square here in the middle. It's flat. But then it kind of, you can see how it rocks? And I can do the same thing on this side where it rocks. So really what happens is, if I go point to point, if I go edge to edge, I have a little bit of wood on here. Let's see how bad this side is. This side, about the same. So I've got a flat spot in the middle. Let me check this end. And this is going to be about the same way. And I know this is horrible. This is not great. So now I've got to figure out how do I want to run this through the table saw to try to keep it as square as I possibly can. And I think I'm going to do a couple of different things here. So let's go over to the table saw with this. And I need to move these bases out of the way really quickly because they are an impedance to our progress at the moment. Set them over here. Don't fall. That would make me sad. I don't need these for the moment. So I'm going to set these back over here where they came from. Okay. So we're going to go over to the table saw, and I don't have a camera, so I'm going to swing a camera over here for y'all. So give me just a second to do that. Zoom out and go down a little bit here. I think that looks good right there. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That's not bad. That cockeyed and crooked and kind of goofy looking. Yeah, a little bit. It is a little bit. Let me get around the corner here and get a little bit of view here. It's actually not too bad. Okay, good enough. Good enough. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to run using the fence and using this. We are going to set this up to try and make some cuts on here and get this thing as squared up as possible. Raise this up to the point where it's going to cut through here, not there. I might be able to actually just run it right through here. That's actually not bad because once I get this side done, I can get this side done, then I can use that side against the fence to get the other side down because I don't need to cut much. What I do need to do though is get my dust collection. So I got to unhook the hose from the CNC machine. It did a good job there, as usual. Take the boot off and then we will slide this into the table saw. Okay, so hang on one second. Can't reach anything here. Got big giant clamps in the way and other stuff. Okay, I've got that and I need the power from the router. We're gonna need that as well for the table saw. Okay, so we've got dust collection, we've got power. Let's go ahead and get my ear protection and let's just make a thin slice off of this one and see if that is going to work for us. Because I do have a flat section right here at the top, and that's the thing. I've got a flat section right here in the middle, so I'll use that pressed against here and just trim a little tiny edge off of here. That's the plan. Can I get it all the way through here? Ooh, just barely. Just barely. And I'm only going to trim as much as I need to here. Okay, let's try it. Okay, took a couple of cuts. I didn't want to take too much. Took a couple of cuts, but we got this nice flat edge here. And that's very straight, pretty darn straight on here. So what I'll do now is use that against my fence. And then I'll take this over to the the compound miter saw because I've got an extended cut miter saw and trim these off nice and square as well. I got a lot of dust over here. So I need to figure out, oh, okay, hang on. I need to clean this dust off of here. That thing made a mess. That made a mess. Let me clean this off. All right, now I'm going to set up the fence here so that we can get this edge trimmed off. And like I said, I'm only trying to trim just the bare minimum, keep as much of this wood for the time being. So let's try this and see how that works. Okay, success. We were successful. Got this trimmed down. Now, that being said, I probably should equal these out because I should make it about equal distance. So you notice I have a strip here. I've got a strip here. I could trim off to make these equal on each side. So let me see how much trimming I would need to do on that side to make those equal. You know, trying to give a little bit of a balance to it. Didn't have to, but you know, why not? So I'm just going to use this as my gauge for about, it doesn't have to be exact, so that's about a ½ inch in. And this is not a ½ inch. So I'm going to measure a ½ inch and then just draw a line and see where that gets me here. Let me find a pencil that actually works. So from here, a ½ inch, right here. And then I'm just going to do the same thing down here. I'm just going to ballpark this, but I need to do it on this side because this is going to be my cutting side. So ½ inch is what I said. So here, actually I'm going to take it from here because I might as well, because I'm going to line it up with the cutting blade anyway. Do I have a saddle square out here? I do not. How about my any other squares? These are my squares. Let me get a square here just so I can draw this line and line it up with the cutting edge of the blade. All right, there we go. So I want this to be right here. There we go. Now I can take this and, oh, look, I got little chippies here. Move this over, and we're gonna, like I said, we're just making this so it's a little bit more symmetrical, a little balance to it. So those, the end pieces are about the same distance from those first walnut pieces. So it doesn't need to be, but I just kind of, I don't know, I like balance, I like symmetry. It's just the way I am. Okay, it's a nice little strip, nice and flexy. Yeah, it's actually a good straight. That's a good glue joint when you can do that. Oh, there it goes. But that did not break on the glue. It broke next to the glue. Okay, so now we've got this, right? Little symmetry there, little even space outside of the walnut. But now we need to clean up these edges because these edges are not great. And the way we're going to do that is over on the compound miter saw. And that means we have to move our setup once again, because that's just how we roll. We roll with the changes. All right. So I'm going to put the power here. I'm going to drag the dust collection all the way over. All right, get it unhooked. And then we will move that over to miter saw up here. And you're like, oh, I can't see you. What are you doing? It's because I haven't moved the camera yet. But I'm going to do that right now for you. Zoom out. Let's switch this over to here. Boom. Just like that. And when I hit the switch button, you're going to be boom, just like that. Yep, right in my face. That's where you're going to be. No, but we're going to be over here. And we are going to just trim a little bit off of each edge here, I think. So I need to unlock this so that I get full sliding motion here, which is why I love this thing. It is wondrous. I need to get my dust collection. All right, let's make a cut here. I'm just going to trim off the edge really lightly here. Man, I was making that blade work overtime. It was not happy with me taking that much material. This is really thick. I mean, it's a thick and it's really super hard. So, but I now have a really nice, look at that. That's a nice square corner right there. Let me grab my thing here. So that is a very nice square corner. And we're just going to take this and flip it and do the same thing on this edge. Just cut a little bit off, not a lot, just a little bit. I can kind of figure out where I'm going to cut here. Right there. And I think, do this, hang on a second. So I'm going to hold it down a little bit because it is so thick. I don't want this budging at all. I don't want it moving. I want it held nice and tight inside clamp here. So I'm just going to use this as an added protection to hold this thing down, because as I'm holding here and I'm dragging back and forth, I just don't want it shifting. All right, one last side. Okay, that's all we needed. And I just, like I said, I just cut a little super thin strip off of here. And we can have a couple of 90-degree boards in there. Let me put this back in the garbage. And let's switch back to front row center here. And let me sit down, take these ears off, and then we can talk about what we're going to do with this bad boy. Well, I know what we're going to do. What time is it? 1:20. We're not going to do it right now. I might do it this weekend because what it involves is sanding. And I know how much you all like to watch me sand, but I might have to disappoint you and hold back a little bit. But I do need to sand this, and I need to start at about 80 grit and work at it. And it's probably going to take me a good hour to sand this thing. That's being kind and hopeful that I can get it really well done. And the thing is, you know, you really want you really want as smooth a polished surface as you can get when you're sanding in grain. And it takes time to do that. You know, the flat, long edges, no problem. I do have a couple of open edges here on these that are kind of bugging me. I may trim these down again too. There's a couple areas where it just did not get sealed. And it's right here on these two pieces of cherry. I did not, and I was kind of suspicious of those edges. I might take this all the way down. I might make another cut on the lengthwise of these and take it all the way down to the walnut, just because. There's no rules on these. It is what it is. But I do notice I don't have a great. Remember I was talking about glue starved joint. These aren't glue starved, but what happens is that because there was a little bit of warping and such, I wasn't getting a great squeeze all the way across. And I didn't want to squeeze too hard where I was afraid I was going to snap pieces of wood, right? So I knew that I would be really great here in the middle, but I might have to give up some on the edges. And that might be the case here. But because this has no dimension that is locked into it, it can be whatever it wants to be. And like I said, I might decide that I want to trim these edges down and make them kind of a little rounded on the edges here, which I would do that over on the bandsaw probably, and then sand them and make them nice and smooth. And so I might do something like that. That kind of interests me a little bit. I'm thinking that would be kind of cool. Because, you know, go look on Etsy or wherever and you'll see, you know, how many rectangular cutting boards will you find, right? Even in-grain cutting boards like this and such, you're going to find a bunch of them. And the truth be told, it gets boring. And we don't have to be boring. We can spice things up a little bit. We can make things more interesting. And I think, you know, just by adding a little bit of shape to it, you can do so much to change, even though you've barely taken anything off the edges. Just by doing some rounding, you've basically changed the whole dimension of the thing and changed the way it looks. So you don't have to be cookie cutter and do what everybody else does. You can do different things. Probably what I'll do is after sanding this, I think I'm kind of locking into that curved shape here. And what I would do is something like this, where you can basically figure out about like this, you know, like, oh, do like that, curve this. So like I'm doing is curving this, right? So if you curve this, and then you can draw a line, and then you can use that line to cut out. And just like I said, it's not an extreme curve, it's just a slight bevel. You can use French curves, you can use however you want to. You can get a big giant compass and draw your lines that way, it doesn't matter. But like I said, just something to change the shape and make it, I don't know, just a little different. And I think that would be cool to do that. I like that. And then, so I might do that little bit of edge. I can take it over to my circular sander and kind of smooth that down, and then, you know, do multiple sandings around there to get it all nice and smooth. Then I would still do the bevel on the bottom. I'm going to do a chamfer bit and bevel that bottom, put a little 45-degree chamfer underneath it. And then I will put feet underneath, so it sits up a little higher too. But yeah, that's I think that's kind of where I'm headed with this, and I like that direction. This is kind of fun. But remember where I started from. If you weren't here, this is all scrap wood. This all came out of my scrap pile that was sitting on the side. These were all long, thin strips, because when I'm making my sewing machine bases, pardon me when I clean the gunk out of my eyes, while I'm making my sewing machine bases, I'm usually taking boards that are, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch thick or so, but they're usually like 4 inches wide, and I need to get them down to 3 inches. So I'm cutting like these 1-inch strips off of these long boards, and I end up with a whole bunch of those things. And my thought was, well, I'm going to save these because at some point in time I might figure out what to do with them. Well, this is what I ended up doing with them. That's why you've got these smaller blocks. You know, a lot of times you'll find cutting boards that are made of much larger blocks than this. But these are Definitely smaller blocks, a little more challenging because in the glue up and stuff, like I said, there's so many little pieces that getting them glued up and straight and flat, that's a little bit more challenging, which I'm not opposed to a challenge. But, you know, there's also more chance for failure and stuff in here. Hang on a second. I want to go grab something and show you. It's in the other room here. So give me just a second. Going into my house. I think you can still hear me. Hello, puppies. Hello, dogs. Hello, dogs. I see you. I see you. Hang on. Hang on. I'm gonna get a couple things here because this is show and tell time. All right. I'm gonna bring these back in and show you a couple of different things here and things that kind of, you know, influence my thinking on things like cutting boards and stuff. Let's start with this one. So this is a very typical cutting board. It is straight grain. I don't know what it's made out of. It's not maple, but it's a hardwood of some sort, not ash. I'm not sure what this is made out of, but anyway, nice straight grain cutting board, right? Problem with straight grain cutting boards over time, especially if they get dried out and such, is that the wood, first of all, you'll see that this is actually made of long strips. Notice how they're starting to crack and separate right here. So that's very common because, you know, this thing hasn't been oiled or whatever. But it's a really simple design, right? This is basically just a rectangle. It's a rectangle, right? They rounded the corners. They cut a little handle in here so that you have something to hold on to. And then they did this round over bit on all the, so the edges actually, which I kind of like this actually, it's not bad. See how that's rounded on both sides there? So it's just a nice round profile right here. But anyway, this is kind of just your standard boring cutting board. Long grain, not very interesting, kind of, you know, is what it is. Let me set this aside for a second because there's another one I want to show you that's underneath there. But I'll get to that in a second. So this is, oh, beauteous. One of the boards that I made early. And you can see thickness-wise, it's pretty thick. This is, how thick are you? This is 1 3/4 inches thick. So this is a burly board right here, and it's hefty. It has some heft to it. It has cherry and it has walnut. So walnut and cherry on this thing. It's a beautiful board. It's been oiled recently, and that's why it looks so dark. You can see the bottom doesn't have quite as dark an area on here. This has been chopped on quite a bit, but you can see the end grain holds up to chopping and such a lot more than a straight grain. There's still cut marks and scratches in here, but overall, this still maintains its efficiency. Now on this one, I rounded it over, so it's got a little round over, so you can see on the edge profile here, I did like a little 1/4 inch round over on the whole thing. And then down here, I did this little handle like this, right? And it's not bad. And you can see this has feet on it. So I do the little rubber feet with this little stainless steel screws, but it sits really well. It's up off the table. You can reach under and grab it. This thing is not moving. It is heavy. It is very heavy. This is a beast. So this is like if I was just making a regular cutting board, I mean, right? This is just your standard cutting board. It's rectangular. It's got a couple little handles on the side. It's made up of big blocks of wood. Not exciting, but not horrible, right? It's just regular. Even though it's big, I think thicker makes it better. If you're gonna do ones like this, make them thicker because then they at least look more interesting. Now, if you wanna get even more interesting, you can do something that looks like this. You can go on to the straight camera here. So you can do this. This is a guitar shape cutting board. Not only is it guitar shaped, but it's a wavy cutting board too. So let me get in here and show you. So it has some really like beautiful flaming maple wood in here and such, and some walnut. This was a scrap board, but I took some boards and made planks, and then I glued them together, and then I cut shapes out of them, right? And then what I did was I took those shapes, so I cut a strip like this out of one of them, and I glued them all back together, but it was basically 2 boards stacked together, so when I cut them out, I had exact matching pieces. I would swap those pieces out. And so my son had one that looked exactly like this, except his was not in the shape of a guitar. But this is what I mean about being, you don't have to be normal. You can make yours into the shapes of things and stuff. And now this one is straight grain, and you can see it needs to be oiled again. It also needs to be sanded. The surface takes a beating. I use this one probably more than any of them. And yeah, it needs to be resanded and then oiled again. But that's kind of my thought is like, if you're going to make them, yeah, I can make the really normal ones and it looks great and everything, but why not do something like this? And this is just completely just boring as all get out. Nobody should have a cutting board like this anymore, because that's just freaking boring. It's just all the same wood. It's not even strips of different wood. It's just glue strips together, cut it out, and hey, there's a cutting board for you. I don't know, that probably cost 15 or 20 bucks at, a home store. But it's worth like maybe $1.50. I mean, it really, it's nothing new. It's a very heavy wood though. It's very stout. I really would like to know what it is. But this thing is actually to the point where it's got separation in here. This handle is kind of moving around because there's a split in the wood right here on one of those seams where, that's the problem with wood. Wood moves and you don't get that good glue joint, and over time, and you don't keep it saturated over time, the fibers dry up and then they pull away from each other, and it's almost impossible to fix that. But anyway, I just wanted to give you an example of some different cutting boards that I have made, and then one that I didn't make but I find completely boring. So get away from boring, go to something a little bit more classic. End grain, always end grain if you can, because end grain just holds up to abuse. It's more work. I mean, honestly, doing straight flat grain stuff like this, you can buy kits and they are so easy, and it's, hey, look at these strips, glue them together. Now you've got a cutting board. But that's boring. I mean, it really is. Go end grain. End grain is not boring. End grain is more useful. End grain is more beautiful. It holds up over time. And then go with something where you can make a shape. Make something more interesting. Don't be a square. Be a circle. Squares, squares are boring. Be a circle. And if you're not going to be a circle, at least I will give them credit that they did round these over nicely. So at least round things up. Because you know what? It just feels better than sharp. These are rounded, these corners. I didn't do a severe round over, but these are rounded. But anyway, we'll call it there for a day. I will sand. Let me set this aside. Hang on, it's in my shop, so I'm trying not to get my cutting boards dusty. I probably should sand my guitar one while it's out here. I might do that. Anyway, I'm going to sand this one. Come back here. I'm going to sand this one this weekend and get it to the point where it will be lovely. And you can see we've got some good thickness on this, so a nice hefty board. It just feels more substantial. I think that's the word I'm looking for. I like substantial, not dainty when it comes to cutting boards. I'll sand it on Monday. When we come back here Monday, I will start cutting this out. We'll make plans to start shaping this. I might shave off a little bit more on the edges. We'll shape this, and once we've shaped it, we can do some sanding on the edges, and we can, well, then it's time to really do the chamfer bit. So we'll get that edge done and sand the chamfer down, do a nice, cleanup of it, and then we'll oil it. I've got some mineral oil, which is what I always use for my cutting boards. Don't use food oil because it'll go rancid. So you want to make sure you're using something made for cutting boards, like they sell specifically cutting board prep stuff. You can get salad bowl finish and use that. Although I don't know, for cutting board, I think you don't want that for a cutting board. But you could use it. Just make sure it's totally cured before you go using it and it's food safe. The thing about mineral oil does not go rancid. It protects the wood from moisture and such, and you can refresh it. You can buy a bottle of mineral oil for like $1.50 at the local department store, Walmart, pharmacy, wherever. You can buy mineral oil all over the place. It's cheap, and you just pour it on there and you just keep wiping it. And when it stops soaking in, you'll know when it's soaked in, it'll look dry again. You just pour more on there until it stops soaking in. When it stops soaking in, you're done. Wipe it off, let it sit for a little bit, and your cutting board is ready to go. And you can keep conditioning your board over time. And that's why I always tell people, like, look, get yourself some mineral oil, put it on there about once a month, and your board will last you generations. And it really should. So, okay, we're done for today. I'm going to go grab some lunch, and then I've got to go run out into what looks like another gross day and do some errands and things that need to be done. But have yourself a great weekend. Do something fun. Get out in the shop if you've got a shop, or if you've got a little maker space or whatever. Go make something. It's really satisfying and it's fun, and make something that you need for your house, because that's always even better, right? Or make something you can sell, because why not? I'm not selling this. This will be a gift for someone. I don't know who yet, but it'll be a gift for someone. When I need a gift, I'll be like, ooh, that cutting board we made. That'll work. So have a great weekend. I will be back here Monday at 11 o'clock. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, which the creek has been rising, a lot of rain. But I'll be back on Monday. If you do me a favor before you dive out of here, hit the subscribe, the like, the follow, the whatever. Don't do anything that makes you spend money. I don't want that. But things that help me get a little bit of awareness and things like that. That's all I want. And yeah, get out of here. Go have fun. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Take care.